legacies in the art of business, basically, is what I was kind of.
There's an old show called Legends and Legacies that was on TV. Do you remember that?
But that's, you know, like...
It was the same thing. They interviewed people, or I guess it was a podcast back then. I wouldn't say a podcast, but that's what they called it. It was on... So when I follow Dean Martin, I follow him on YouTube. So he got interviewed by these guys, Legends and Legacy. This guy was like a national news announcer.
Huh.
You may recognize him if I see him. Where the fuck's my YouTube? So here.
You mean Dean Martin, like the actor?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The singer?
So here, let's do...
Performer, I should say.
Yeah, Dean...
Part of the Rat Pack?
Yeah, well, they were my heroes, man. So let's see, Dean Martin. Here we go. Martin and Lewis. So Dean Martin, his secret success was when they talked to one another. He would teach you how to learn from him, right?
Okay.
You don't talk to the camera. You talk to the person.
Like the audience.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Kind of breaking that fourth wall.
Yeah.
Letting people know that there is an audience.
Right. So here, let's see if I can find Legends and Legacies. Man.
Yep.
And same with who's the guy that's got Tonight Show now?
Jimmy Fallon?
Yeah, he hits off that other guy. They play off one another.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So that's how a podcast has got to go. Same thing, right?
Yeah. Just riffing off each other. Like I said, it's... You know, you don't...
Like here, this interview here is staged. When you see it. And these guys all play off one another.
So
it's staged, yeah.
Yep.
I'll show you. It's real quick here to get through the goddamn commercial. There we go. Here. I watch this a million times. If you watch this, it's all staged, right? They hit off one another.
Sure. You're going to start already, huh? No, I'm not starting. I'm almost through. Good to see you. How'd all these people get in your room?
See? Come on.
I'll let you know one thing, that there's going to be at least 110 people watching you tonight, because I'm going to Frank's house. You know, it's his party, his 60th birthday, and we're all going to get in his bed and watch
Frank Sinatra?
Yeah, yes.
That's going to be cozy little group. Yeah, if they aren't watching, I guess the Coats will be watching. Their son will be watching him. Did you get Frank something special? How did you do out here? Fair.
See?
Had a big opening.
Bob Hope?
And that's it. Imagine him getting away with that? That was it. Yeah, I know. At least, you know, New York's got the finest, but we've got the sweetest out here. That's policemen. Forget it. Who's the next one to come out? I know you're going to ask me a question. I'm going to ask you a question. Well, you go ahead, Bernie. Did you get Frank something special for his 60th birthday? Did you give him a nice gift? But how do you wrap up glands?
See? So they play off one another.
Yeah, glands to go. How's it going, Ed? Good. You don't, No, I quit that. Here, use my coffee.
He stick his finger in it?
Here's my ashtray.
Oh.
You know, Ed,
That's why I said, here's my coffee cup.
this desk looks bigger. It is bigger at home. Well, that's Joanne. It's bigger at home. Joanna. There's an A on the end of that. There was once just a Joanne. Yes, that's true. There was also a Joan once.
They both have Joan for wives.
Do they?
Yeah, that's why they do that.
I had so many things I wanted to tell you. Yeah. These people look at you every night like this? I mean, the crew.
Well, we have a bigger group coming tonight because you and Bob are here, you see. Normally, nobody.
Carson was like the very first ever talk shows,
I
right?
thought they were here because
Yes.
Angie was here.
So it's late night.
Yeah, he was, and he was on the edge all the time.
What did he do before that?
That was on
I mean, how did he make
It's
it?
the same thing. He interviews, singing, stage. He was almost with the Rat Pack. He used videos of him with the Rat Pack. But he was more of an announcer. But anyways, what I wanted to show you can see how they play off one another.
Yeah, there's
This is the
nothing-
podcast back in the day.
Yeah,
I have a hangnail. I'm sterilizing it.
keep those fingers straight.
Right.
We're doing that nowadays.
So I used to do that at work. Stick my finger in there and stir the coffee. Yeah, I have to know the guy. Right?
You don't do many outside shows, do you?
I never get that. What?
You don't do many shows other than your own television show. I don't see you
I
around.
go to the Magum.
The what?
The Magum.
MGM.
In Las Vegas.
The
MGM.
MGM Hotel.
He calls it the Megan.
I go there 6 times a year. Pick up $400 or $500 and get out.
Do you gamble when you're up there?
Me, gamble. Me, I was a croupier for 11 years, and you asked me if I would go up against them tables. Do you know that those tables are not there to be beaten? Do you know that the percentage will get you? Why don't you stop me when I'm yelling like that? You asked how many guys break you up, and you stopped at Lee Marvin.
Oh, you do. You're doing pretty good tonight, I'll tell you. You're breaking.
Yeah?
You're following me. I love you. Love you for it.
Do you?
I wish I was following you.
I like to follow you.
Well, we're gonna come back in a minute. I'd like to talk about your special.
I have a special.
Coming up Sunday. This Sunday.
Oh, they actually put that thing together?
They're gonna.
I didn't know that. You said it the best.
That's gonna be-
Everybody said,
Do his own promotion. He can't remember what it is.
But he plays a drunk. But he's not drunk.
Practice a lot.
He acts like he's drunk.
Does he?
See how I set you up? I'm a straight man. Oh, I thought I was taller. Go ahead.
We're gonna take a short break, but we're coming right back. Why am I talking like this?
Yeah, so I watched this a million times, right? I could word that thing word for word, right?
Yeah.
Busy as could be, Biggie.
Yeah. So they play off one another. They set it up. I'll take one more look for this Legends and... Man, if I put in Legends...
And yeah, like I said, that's just an idea. But the goal is, like I said, just to have stories and have people talk about their past history. Working at various trades and whatnot. I mean, the automobile industry is kind of connected to the entertainment industry because they're constantly advertising and throwing stuff out in the media.
Yeah, they are. But you could talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So where you want to head? You want to head in the automotive industry? You want to head into manufacturing, or me personally, in the jobs I've had?
Let's start out with, like I said, what got you into the tool and die trade? I mean, what?
That's all there is around here for work. for me, that's all there was.
I mean, we're in Detroit, near Detroit, so it's
Well, right, it's a
the big
motor
three.
city, right? So it was more prevalent back then. Every shop was filled around here. There was no vacancies. They were all some type of manufacturing or die shop. And you could have any job you want. Go down gross spec. Someone will pick you up and hire you in. So you usually running machines, either stamping presses or you're machining tooling with mills and lathes. And so you either got a mill or a lathe. that you're machining something or a press and you're stamping something. And that's all the work is. So it's some type of manufacturing, right?
Yeah. So like when you got into it though, like once you started, I guess, learning the trade just from somebody teaching you,
Right.
how big were the pieces that you started out with? Like, did they start you small, then you moved up from there?
For me, I started doing forgings in a press. But when I started in the stamping business, it was all small and big stuff at the same time.
Okay.
I did everything all at once. Started really getting involved, I started with the big dice first.
And you said you started in 1976?
Yeah, right out of high school. Yeah.
From just seeing how, you know, vehicles are built from when you started to when you know, ended your career with, what was it, Fiat?
Right.
How different was it? I mean, just factory-wise, just with the automation and all that stuff that they
Oh, it was huge. There was no automation when I started.
when you started. Yeah.
No.
So
If anything, they had an iron hand that would come down and just grip and pull the part out. But people still had to put the part in. They didn't have the technology.
So it was all
It was just people on back and front of the presses,
Wow.
putting pieces in and taking them out. You know. Then automation came in. You know. And they finally made it work.
and that must have been a challenge for you too, because I mean, obviously you were doing it and used to doing it by hand,
Right.
and you had to probably fix.
Well, yeah,
what
right.
they
You
could
got to
do.
deal with it, right? Yeah. You know, for me, I just work on the stamping dies themselves, right? So
Okay.
everyone has their own trades. One person will fix the machine. One person does robots, and you know, one person works on the dies. But you still have to work around all this equipment. You have to understand it, right? Otherwise, you're going to get hurt.
Sure.
You know. You know, what's to keep that, when you're in the die working on it in a press, what's to keep that robot from going in and hitting you when
Smashing
you're in
something
there,
or
right?
somebody, yeah.
So you got to make sure how to power it down, make sure it's locked out, make sure it's not going to activate when you're in there, right, for safety. Otherwise, you're dead or you're going to be missing a limb or something.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, obviously, you have major danger. You know, you got all that stuff moving around.
Well, yeah. So safety had to come into effect. So there was no safety back then, years ago when I started. You know, you either understood your equipment or you got hurt. You know.
Learn the.
You know, OSHA was around, but they never enforced anything.
Sure.
You know, only if somebody got hurt, they would investigate, right?
Yeah.
And hey, what can we do not to make it happen again? But nobody followed safety rules back then. You're supposed to, but nobody did.
Nobody policed it either. I mean, probably
No. So safety equipment and safety stuff holds companies up. It costs them more money, right?
Yeah.
You know, they rather have the guy do a shortcut and get the job done fast, even though there's a little danger involved.
Sure.
It's all about money, right?
Keep things moving. Yeah.
Yeah, keep things moving.
Out of all the cars that you, I guess, you know, went through that process with, what was one of your favorites?
And I got a bunch of them. You know.
Just all the, you know, obviously different models coming out each year. And,
Well, yeah, it was always something new.
yeah.
And then they wouldn't tell you what it went to. I mean, you kind of knew it was either a GM, Ford, or Chrysler. That's all you knew. But what car it went to, you know, they would give you like maybe a fender and a rear quarter to do, or they wouldn't give you the whole package in the shop,
So you
right?
never got to see
So
the
you
entire
never,
thing.
right,
Oh, okay. All right.
right.
Huh.
So,
When would you finally see the final product? When it was released on the market?
yeah, you would know that they'll give you a code name. Everything had code names, like, you know, a 2-letter AG or B, C or whatever, right?
Sure.
So they would code name them, you know, XJ or whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you knew. Then it'd come out later on. You'd find out more in the newspaper than you would from anybody else, you know. Once it got published, the KR is the new Chrysler Concorde or whatever, right? Saying, oh yeah, I worked on those fenders, right? No, I recognize
Now
them
you
now.
see
It's
it.
on a car, right? So that's how it would go,
I see, okay.
you know. But one was a Buick Riata. It was a nice one. That was a 2-seater sports car. It came out. That was one of my favorites. John DeLorean was another one. You know, of course, all stainless steel. That was cool.
And that was actually what the DMC, they called it the 12 at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah,
And then it became the DeLorean.
yeah. DMC 12. There's so many cars I worked on over the years to keep track of each one, but you know, it's hard to keep track of them all, right? But,
Sure.
yeah. That was one of my favorites. Was one to personally meet John DeLorean. It was huge, man. That was cool.
How did that happen? I mean, when,
He came through, and it was for a tour. He came through the plant, and wanted to make another car. You know, it was cool as hell. You know.
you said you got to actually build the doors on that from basically the pressing and all that, stamping?
All right, everything we did there was stampings and presses. I mean, you take a flat piece of metal and stamp it and turn it into a part, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, stuff like that you don't forget, right? You remember this guy? He was one of the CEOs at GM, and to have him walk through, it was huge, man.
Yeah,
You know.
I can't imagine.
Well, it's like having Lehigh Coco walk through your
Exactly,
plant,
yeah.
right? Everybody knows him. He knows who you are, right? They know you're up to something. Always, you know.
And obviously, they don't usually do that. They don't usually make that walk. It's all, they're always in their corporate, tower or whatever they call it.
Right.
Huh.
But
And it's cool to see. I mean, even with the DeLorean, I mean, with everything like Back to the Future, all that stuff. And you were just talking about, or you were telling me about the, was it the 40th anniversary they had?
yeah, that's going on right now.
Yeah, celebration.
Yeah, they're celebrating 40 years, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I wonder if they'll make it like they just did the Bronco again. I wonder if they'll make one just to see.
Well,
I wonder who would produce that though.
I
Probably not one of the. They'd be like a specialty type dealer, right?
yeah, there's a guy in Texas. I forgot his name, Wayne something. He has the rights, supposedly, the rights to the DeLorean now. And he has a dealer network set up throughout the United States. But I don't know if he's going to come out with another car or not. Who knows, right?
Sure.
They wouldn't tell you anyway,
No,
right?
no.
You know, nobody does.
It would be amazing to see, what it would be. Because, I mean, obviously the stainless steel aspect of it, for one, that would be, it's not cost effective, but the car lasts forever.
Right. But it wasn't the first time they used stainless steel on cars for years now. The old Cadillacs used to have stainless steel tops, and they used to make the trim in stainless.
Really? Oh, I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah. Hubcaps.
Yep.
All hubcaps were stainless.
Now they're plastic.
Yeah. Gas tanks were stainless steel. Used to stamp those. Those are all plastic today. So, they used stainless steel for years. It wasn't new. He just used it more than anybody else did. But,
Trying to think what else. Basically, like when you got into your position there, and I'm sure you probably worked your way up with that many years working for all those companies. You got into kind of a higher, like a supervisor role. I'm guessing, right? Did you have to train new employees, or were you constantly on the line? I guess like the entire time you worked there.
I was always a worker. I was never
Right.
a supervisor.
Okay, all right.
Oh, no. I was making it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
know.
you enjoy what you're doing, right? You
Sure.
just do it and get it done, right? That's all.
So in the factories, do they have like separate areas for? I mean, Cause you're dealing with the entire vehicle, right? It's not on the same plant though, right?
Right. So, as far as a vehicle goes to build, no one shop can build all the dies for that one vehicle. So that's why there's all these different shops around. So they'll spread it out all over the place.
Okay.
You know, and then when they got to bring it together, they bring it all together where they're going to build the vehicle at, and bring everything in. No one place is big enough to do all that work.
Okay, that
You know,
makes sense.
in a timely manner,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Cool.
that's why there's always tool and die shops around. You know.
Yeah, it seems like I mean, I haven't even got them by me in Fowlerville. There's shops that, you know, I don't know what they do exactly, but they're not that far away.
Well, it's either they're making something or manufacturing something, right? You know, there's always some type of manufacturing going on somewhere. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
From like just this, just say like a small business compared to like going to like, you know, the big three. What was was it pretty much the same type of work, same, you know, how much did that change?
As far as the work goes, the work was still the same. You know, as far as the stamping dies goes, you got to die in a press, right? I don't care where it's at.
Sure.
You throw it in a press and make it work.
Yep.
Make it go up and down and make the thing work, right?
Yep.
As far as press size, you know, you could run everything from the size of a matchbox to the whole side of a car, right? You know, they didn't have press capacity that big back then to do what they do today in manufacturing cars. That's another thing that's changed over the years. They never had presses big enough to make a whole side aperture, right? So now they run 2 doors at a time now.
So you have to piece it together
Yeah.
instead of making it.
Right. So they never built presses that big. Nobody had them. There were few. They had them, but they're very few and far in between, right?
Okay. So that's kind of how people would specialize and probably, you know, get more money by having like, you know, a specialty die like they're a
Press. The size of the press,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Well, if you could imagine a full-size van, right? How big a full-size van is? How long is that rooftop
Yeah.
on it, right? So that die has got to be at least that big, and the press is going to be bigger, right? If you could imagine that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how big it's got to be. So to give you an idea, I used to work at a Bud Company in Detroit. They had one of the largest press sizes in North America. So they actually did all the big 3 large vans rooftops for Ford, GM, and Chrysler because they had the press capacity to do it.
That's
Right.
also where you would.
So what does that tell you? That the big 3 didn't have it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But this company did in Detroit.
Is that where you started working on like armor plating, things like that?
No, that was before,
Okay.
way before that.
Okay.
But no, but that was just a press capacity. So yeah, that's how big it was, and we ran for Ford, GM, and Chrysler. Chrysler had the longest one at the time. They had a maxi van. That thing was huge for that rooftop. You know. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I just never imagined that the big 3 didn't have presses big enough to stamp their own
I mean,
rooftops,
they have
right?
everything, yeah.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But no.
Well, when they're subcontracting to get it done, I mean, that's, you know, that's how you gotta get it done, I guess.
Well, it's a volume thing too.
They probably didn't use that a lot. So
Right.
it's
So
not
how many
that-
how many long big vans are you gonna sell?
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
You sell more cars and trucks than you would a large van, so the volume's not there for to keep it in
Sit
house.
there in the factory and
Right.
take room, take
Right.
space.
So that's why they do that.
Okay.
Anything that's high volume, they want to try to control everything, keep it in house.
So like a sports car, or like, let's just say like a Dodge Viper.
Yeah, they call those niche vehicles.
So they only make so many.
No more niche vehicles considered usually 20,000 or less
And
for
is
the
that
whole run of the vehicle,
cycle, okay,
the
okay,
whole life cycle of the vehicle.
okay. And that
Yeah.
includes like next year's model plus the.
Right, like the Corvette
Yep.
or a specialty Mustang, those are all, of course they do make a lot of Corvettes, but that's just a for instance, right?
Sure.
You know,
And then like your truck, like say like a Dodge Ram, I mean they're making probably what, 500,000 of them at a time?
well, yeah, about one a minute, right?
One a minute, okay.
Yeah.
Oh. That's
One a
crazy.
minute, 20,000 a month,
20.
right? So yeah,
So just hauling and moving. That's gotta be crazy to see all that and,
well, the half of it is, right? You're sitting there and you're making all these parts for these things, right? You're like, who's buying all these vehicles? Where are they all going, right?
Sure.
But yeah, they go all around the world. Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, you sit there, one a minute, 20,000 a month, and they're all sold, right?
Yep.
Everyone's sold as they built it. Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, makes you think, right?
It does, especially the prices that they charge, I mean, it's crazy to see, like my car, the thing was probably 38 grand when it was brand new, Nowadays, buy that same car like the
Yeah, you get a base model now.
Blazer,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you ain't kidding. But they obviously make money. If they make one, everyone's sold. They make a ton of money on these things.
Sure.
I remember Fiat Chrysler used to say their electric Fiat 500, they lost money on every one.
They just knew right off the bat.
Well, yeah, but they had to have an electric car.
Ah,
So they got a Fiat 5, and they don't like making it, right? Because they lose money on it.
sure,
But, they make it up in other ways. They always do.
I'm sure, yeah.
You know.
And now that those are becoming so much more popular, with everybody's viewpoints on, certain things.
Well, yeah, it's
Better
the
for
way
the
of the world
environment.
now, right? Everyone wants to go electric.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes you wonder why we didn't make that decision years ago, right?
Well, it seems like oil, was,
It was plentiful all over
So
the place. That's
plentiful.
all we knew, right?
yeah,
Another thing that's funny is they still haven't changed the internal combustion engine after 100 years, right? We're still using it. Figure that one out, right? I guess the biggest change now is we're going to electric motors. Yeah.
I mean, like your truck's even got like that booster, right? It's a,
Oh yeah, it's got a
It's
booster.
electric.
Yeah, it's like a mild hybrid.
Huh.
You know,
That's amazing if they can do that.
a V8 engine with a I don't know what they rated it at, 160 horsepower electric motor they attached to the drive belts.
No, does that act like as like a, because I know like when you stop at a stop sign or whatever, stoplight,
Right.
the engine's dying on those, right? Just like they're,
Right.
most vehicles do
Right,
now.
right.
So that electric one makes it so it's slowly, so it doesn't wear on the belts or something? Is that what that's designed for?
No, it's actually helps the momentum and gets your city gas mileage up.
Oh, okay.
It helps you take off. It also actually will start the engine too. When you come to a stoplight and motor shuts off and turns on, that's what starts it back up
Okay.
again. But they don't use it, I guess you could say for performance, but increases your city gas mileage. That's what they use it for.
That makes sense.
And then they were having trouble running all the electronics on a 12-volt system in these cars. That 12-volt system, we used to have a 6-volt system
Really?
in the 50s. And that was just barely enough to start the car, right? It ran everything, but then went to 12-volt. Well, now we're going to 48-volt systems. So, evolution of the car.
Yeah, I mean now you
Yeah.
got outlets. You plug in an actual.
Well, yeah,
So
you
many
could power a
amps.
house off these cars
Exactly.
now
It's
too,
crazy.
right? Yeah. All right, kiddo, I'm going for a smoke.
But
these houses like this guy. He's got young kids. He's got young kids. Young kids across the street.
It makes them fun though. I mean, it's also having all the different subdivisions you got running back.
Oh, around here, yeah, they got a field day around here.
Perfect setup.
Oh yeah, this subdivision. Yeah. But it was like so. I used to live over there in Fraser, man. Oh my God, it was a big deal. Everybody had their garages set up for Halloween. It was a real big deal. Oh yeah.
Parties.
More than over here.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, it was just a sign of the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
They're more expensive houses too. You know.
Yeah, we take our kids to it's like just a cul-de-sac, but it's where my brother-in-law's, that's where his in-laws live. And they got, subdivision like they can walk kind of like this, not as big, but with the houses, like you said, it's kind of a little bit higher up there, people, status, so they get like king-size candy bars and full bag after walking like half the road. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
It's enough candy.
What would you do as a kid? You were up in Traverse City. You had some stuff up, some nice subs up there, huh?
Yeah, we would walk up and down Carter Road, where the greenhouse was. And basically, I mean, yeah, you get enough. There was like one little subdivision up on top. I think it was like King's Court. Not King's Court, but something Court. Okay. And that was the road we used to walk. And then once we got a little bit older, we would start going over to my Uncle Tom's, my dad's brother's house, and we would interlock, and they would just let us, free range go.
Didn't your grandpa Vito buy a house on Carter Street too?
Yes.
At one time, lived down the street from you guys.
He was right up the road. Yeah. It was like
this is when he is later in life.
Yeah.
Because he went from the Traverse City house. Mike bought it. The 40 acres.
Yep. That would have been Lake Ann. Yep.
Lake Ann. Mike bought that.
Yep.
And then that's when I think Grandpa bought the Carter, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
so how many houses down was he? 2 or 3 houses down from you guys?
2 on the opposite
side of the street, and that's how I remember it. Yep. 2 houses down across the street. Yep. Only from description from my parents. I was never there.
Gotcha.
But I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, and my mom used to walk up the road, just hey, what's going on? I used to do the same thing. I'd go mow their grass and whatnot. Help them out.
That's pretty cool.
Because actually, my grandma, she was the one that helped me with driver's training and stuff. Mom and Dad were busy with the greenhouse.
Right.
So I went up there and she'd take me driving.
Yeah. She was pretty cool.
Yeah.
She would write my dad letters. Like, Grandpa Vito died, and my mom died, but her and my dad would keep in touch, writing back and forth to one another. And my dad was tickled to death about that someone actually wrote him a letter, right? And wanted to have a conversation.
Yeah, she used to make her own envelopes. So it was all she drew a little picture on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My mom still every once in a while gives me a birthday card with those in them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So what do you mean make envelopes? What did she?
She would do her own the letter. Like you get the envelope, she would custom cut them, so it was kind of like a weird.
Oh, really?
Design on the envelope lip.
Really?
And then she would make take a piece of paper, fold it, tri-fold it. And then draw on the top of it, so when it opened up, it was like her own personal handmade, birthday card or whatever kind of card. Yeah. She'd do pumpkins and stuff for Halloween.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
That's cool as hell.
So yeah, going back into working in the tool and die trade.
Yeah.
How did that work with you? You start in one area of the what you're doing. How would they move you around, to go to different machines and training and stuff like that?
No training.
No training.
You well, in the beginning, you learn to be a die maker in the beginning, right? You either serve an apprenticeship or you learn as you go, right?
Yep.
And if you want a job somewhere else, you better know all the aspects of it or you're not going to get the job. You got to know everything, how to machine. For me, I did what they call as die tryout work. So people will come up with a part shape and they don't know if it's going to work. So they'll make a die, doesn't mean it's going to work.
Okay.
So you have to try it out and see how it works, right? Okay, well, it's going to work. They have an idea.
Sure.
But I may have a little problem over here. Oh, well, sure enough, there is, right? Sometimes they got to scrap the whole thing and rebuild it over and reshape it just to get it to work. So that's what I did. So they come up with an idea. It was called draw die development. It was when you first, it's the whole industry just for that development. Once you try it out and it works, then they'll go ahead and make hard tooling off of it. Soft tooling is cheaper to try out.
Okay.
And you can make changes real quick because the tooling's soft.
Okay.
But once they find out it works, then they'll spend the money and make hard
Get it
tooling,
cast.
which gets expensive.
Okay. Huh.
But you got to try it out in the press, get your metal, got to cut your blank just right, and that's where the talent comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't go to school to learn it. You
No.
have to learn by doing it.
So would you like, just from your experience, you'd basically be able to see with your eyes if it's off, or what would you like, use like some kind of like a caliper? Or?
From experience to look at it, the only thing you could do is to cut a piece of metal, throw it in there, and see what it's going to do without damaging the die. You got to try it out, bring it down slowly, see how it's going to work, raise it up, hit it a little more, bring it down, let it finish its cycle. But the minute you start getting double metal in there and it starts falling over wrinkling, you got to stop, or you'll damage the die.
Okay.
You'll coin it out and put that double metal in there and crunch it, and it'll press right in there when you hit bottom. So you never want to hit bottom. But as you bring it down slowly, open it up and look at it, you can see how the metal moves and forms.
I see.
And then you make your adjustments. You're basically taking like a piece of bubble gum and stretching it over the die, plus moving it at the same time. Metal does stretch. And that's how you strengthen it too, by stretching it.
Oh, really?
It strengthens.
Huh.
And once it works, it works. And if it doesn't, well, you got to try to make it work. If not, they scrap the whole idea and try something else. But you got to try every available technique that you know that could work, right?
Yeah.
Because they got to remember, this is going to be production intent.
Sure.
They want it to they don't want to hit or miss. They want that thing right every time.
Yeah, they produce a minute or how many, whatever in a minute. One car or one truck, you said?
Yeah, a vehicle a minute.
They're trash because the thing was off.
Well, yeah.
It's a lot of recalls and a lot of headaches, I'm sure.
Well, it's not like that, but it's got to keep up with production, right? If you got a job that runs hit or miss, they're not going to like it. They want every part to be good, right?
Was there any vehicles that you, have ever experienced that you knew that they probably didn't have it right, and not necessarily like they didn't do it right, but like it was just a pain in the ass because the design.
Oh, they all are. For certain jobs, right?
Sure.
I remember this one that was for the Dakota pickup truck we ran at the Bud Company. It was a side aperture, but it had like a 90-degree draw, 12 inches down in one spot. It was forever splitting and wrinkles and splitting, right? It was in production intent, but it was so bad that we had literally fire hoses spraying lubricant all over it just to make it run.
Really?
And it was just, flood up like a pool, right? And that's just to get it to run. So finally one year, they redeveloped it, the initial form die, and took about 6 inches out of the depth of the draw, and that thing ran like a clockwork. But they brought it back in another die. That actual step, they restruck it in another die and got it to reform. So that's a lot of the tricks of the trade that you could do, right? If you can't get it all to form in the first die, you reform it in the second one. But see, a lot of people, you got to think about that all the time,
Sure.
right? But
Yeah, because once you got a piece of metal already formed the way.
once it's it, that's it. It's hard to reform it once it's formed.
So what would they do if there was a bad? They just throw it away.
Yeah,
Basically
they scrap it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
The minute it splits or double metal, they scrap it. That's why they got inspectors on the line. But for the most part, these dies repeat themselves pretty consistently, but you always got to look at all of them, right? Nothing's perfect. So it's like when they make the metal that you stamp each part with. Well, they don't always get the recipe right?
Sure.
If that metal has different ductility, different strengths, if it's too brittle, it's going to start splitting on you.
And that's
right?
basically just from the foundry where they got it.
Right. Yeah, they try to get the recipe right. But,
Sure.
that's what changes. You got variables in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
As you shave thickness down, it's going to get rid of the weight, and obviously that you get to a certain point where you can't have, basically a house of cards on wheels. You got to have that steel in there.
well, yeah. And then everything's switching to, well, like Ford. Ford, all trucks, all aluminum. All the other makers are still using steel and aluminum together.
Yep.
You know. But forming aluminum's a whole different ballgame. And welding it.
Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
welded on aluminum.
So again, all these automakers are set up to run steel, right?
So it's specialty tools.
Especially if your manufacturing equipment uses magnets, right? Well, you can't use magnets on aluminum.
Or aluminum.
Yeah. So all the manufacturing process changes, and aluminum forms different than steel. But everything's going to aluminum and electric now. I'll never forget when Ford came out with the F-150, and they said they were going to make it all aluminum. And then I was working at Chrysler at the time, and they said, well, we'll get the same gas mileage and still make ours out of steel and still keep the big engines. We'll do it with our drivetrain and the transmissions. So they made a Hemi engine that runs on 4 cylinders and put a 9-speed transmission in it, right? To get the better gas mileage equal to Ford's. And that's how they did it. So Ford still makes all aluminum vehicle. Ram still makes all steel. And yet they get the same gas mileage.
I remember that people, when that first happened.
Yeah.
They were showing like commercials where people were throwing their toolboxes in the back of the truck.
And it was splitting and putting holes in the bed. So yeah, that's because aluminum doesn't stretch like steel.
Yeah.
It just breaks and pops. It doesn't stretch as much.
It doesn't rust though. So I guess
No.
it corrodes.
It corrodes, but it doesn't rust. Yeah, they do corrode.
Yeah.
But they literally Ford had to literally reteach all their dealers and their collision shops on how to work with aluminum.
Really?
Yeah, they had to reteach everybody. I mean, they had it out there, but not. They used to, like, most of your vehicles will be made out of steel, but the hood will be aluminum, or the deck lid or liftgate will be aluminum. Most of the hoods are aluminum. Everything else is steel. So they knew how to work on it a little bit, but not where the whole truck was aluminum. I still think the frame is steel on that, though. They used to use aluminum body panels.
Sounds like electric cars nowadays. It's like I wouldn't even know, like a mechanic or whatever, how the hell they deal with that stuff. It's probably just mainly just a battery issue or a wiring issue.
It's probably pretty simple, right, if you think about it.
Yeah.
You don't have fuel to deal with it other than just the juice of the battery, right?
Yep.
So you're just chasing down the wires in an electric motor.
I just wonder how long those batteries will last.
Well, that's where they're at, right? They obviously got it down because they're putting billions in right now into manufacturing batteries. In fact, I think Ford just put $17 billion into a factory down in Kentucky or something, somewhere down south.
Really?
Yeah, $17 billion to manufacture batteries. They did it with another Korean. They're all teaming up with a Korean or a foreign automaker to make batteries here in the United States.
I'm sure Elon Musk's involved in something like that because his factory's in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, they're going to Texas. Yeah, but I don't know where his Gigafactory factory is. Somewhere. I don't know where.
It's amazing some of the stuff that he's producing though. The truck that they're bringing out.
Oh yeah. Well, even the new Hummer's all electric. Did you ever see one of those on the road? Yeah.
The H3?
Yes, I don't know what it is. 8 something.
Okay.
But
No, I never knew they made an electric one.
my whole thing is how those things going to perform. How do they go? How do you charge those things when it's raining out, right?
the risk of yeah.
Well, yeah.
And how much power does it take? I mean,
Right,
does your electric
right.
bill go way up?
Well, that's just it, right? Do they tell you that when you buy a vehicle, instead of gas, this is how much your electric bill's gonna be now?
I'm guessing. Or how to convert something in your house to plug it in.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you see all those places popping up now, just the charging stations, and it's like, does somebody have to swipe their credit card to do that?
Well, that's just it. What do you do, right? We're not there yet, but we're gonna hit there.
Yeah.
I think they're just gonna convert all the gas stations over to somehow be charging stations. That's all they could do. Infrastructure's there.
Yeah.
But I don't know, they're still gonna need gasoline and electric at these
Exactly.
stations now.
Yeah, 'cause nobody's gonna, I mean, not everybody's gonna buy them. Seems like they're
Yeah.
pretty expensive, you know, I mean, I haven't priced anything out, but,
Well, new Hummer's at least $100,000.
yeah.
I know
They have an
that.
electric Tahoe now too.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, they're all hopping on the bandwagon,
Yeah.
you know. What the hell are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's crazy how different, you know, things nowadays with, you know, the way they build these vehicles. You can't hardly work on it yourself, you know, it's not.
No.
It's not for a mechanic anymore because it was put together with a machine, you know?
Well, everything's computers now. They just plug it in, and a vehicle will tell you what's wrong with it. They got sensors on everything.
Yeah.
If not, they try to figure it out. They're not even good at that. I remember I had a Chrysler 300. I had a check engine light kept coming on, but it was always the transmission setting it off. And they couldn't figure it out. Right? They kept putting transmissions in, they kept putting valve housings in. I probably went back 6 times and they could never figure it out. They finally bought the car back because they couldn't figure it out,
Yeah.
you know.
I had that happen to me when I had a Colorado that had I think it was a 5-cylinder.
Right, they did. They had
Yeah.
5 cylinders in those. They had problems with them.
Well, what happened with me, it was a used car, but it was like, you know, they had that whole point check system.
Right.
Same thing, I drove off a lot, and check engine light comes on, I'm like, what? Guy gives me a long spiel, he's like, oh, it'll probably go away, whatever,
Right.
give it a week.
No.
Well, I finally kept taking it to him and telling him, I'm like, you know, there's something wrong here. Well, then they checked it, and they're like, oh, well, so you know, 2 sensors bad, we'll fix it for you. They replaced it, same thing. Comes up. I'm like, what the hell? So I take it back to him again, same thing. He's like, it's the same O2 sensor. I'm like, how is that possible? Well, come to find out, after taking the car back to him, I think it was like 9 times. That's when I told the guy, I'm like, I don't want this anymore.
Hell no.
What's wrong with it? You know, you guys deal with it. He's like, all right, well, I had actually talked to Jamie Marsh, the guy, you know, Bill Marsh is a big dealership up in Traverse.
Okay.
And he told me, he's like, I've never done this before, but we're going to give you your money back.
Oh,
Used
really?
car, yeah. So I ended
You're
up,
lucky they did that.
yeah. What it ended up being, he said, supposedly, they looked into it, there was 2 O2 sensors. They didn't know there was a second one. So it's like, that makes sense, but it's like, what? You guys should know what you're doing.
Right. Well, the O2 sensor attaches to the exhaust. If you got dual exhaust on 2 catalytic converters, there's a sensor on each one.
Okay. Don't remember if they had
Well,
two.
some cars have single exhaust, some have dual, right? So
Yeah.
if they got 2 catalytic converters,
Okay.
there's
That's
an
what it
oxygen
says.
sensor on each one. So that sensor senses how the fuel and air mixture is, and if it's off,
Tells the engine
it
to
tells
adjust.
put more fuel in, less fuel.
Okay. So it messes with gas mileage.
It will,
Well,
it will. So
when
they
it's
just want clean air coming out the exhaust.
Okay.
That's all that's for.
Gotcha.
They want just enough gas in there to make just the right amount of explosion. So the cars with carburetors years ago, they used to smoke like crazy because they were rich all the time. It'd be black smoke. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
They just pollute more.
Yeah.
They'll still run.
Yeah.
But you had to change your spark plugs every 6 months because everything ran rich, right?
Plus, you gotta check your oil probably more often.
Right, because it was
It's burning together.
right. So there'd be burnt excess fuel would be going in the motor, right? That
Yeah.
probably either didn't burn, and then of course that contaminates the oil, and that needs to be changed more often. So now that's why you can go longer in between oil changes
Sure.
and tune-ups now, because of all these sensors and stuff. It used to be, yeah, every 6 months you have to put spark plugs in, or at least once a year. I used to do it every year, every October before winter. Tune a car up. If they're gonna break, they usually break in the winter, right?
It's cold. You know,
Yep. They don't want to run.
I had a tune-up done on this thing a couple years ago. And they had to take the wheel off to get to the two spark plugs on the inside of the engine. I'm glad I didn't try doing it. I wouldn't have known that, and I'm sure I would have.
They did that back in the day, even in the 60s. We used to have you used to have to take the wheel off and go into the wheel while they get to the spark plug. But now, you only got to put spark plugs in every 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
It was unheard of years ago.
Same thing with like the drive chains or whatever now compared
Yeah,
to timing belts.
timing belts. Yeah. They used to always mess with those things. That's what used to always go on a car, was a timing belt years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They even went to nylon gears on those things. They have a metal gear, then we coat it with nylon. Well, they didn't last. You know.
Yeah, probably couldn't hold up to the friction.
Yeah.